Hello, Sonor family. This is Julian, and we are on a roll. We've had some great endorsers here, and I am so glad to get to welcome Mr. Adam Nussbaum.
Very nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Man, it's a pleasure. And when I was younger and used to get the Sonor catalogs and all that, the highlight series was out, and I'd see the Adam Nussbaum series, and then the Nussbaum finish in later series. So you have the distinction of not only having your own series of drums, but the German government liked it so much they changed the name of Walnut over there to Nussbaum. And of course, I'm kidding with that, but has that been a source of confusion for folks?
Well, a lot of people think, oh, Nussbaum, they made drums for you, with that name. And the whole way this came about was I had gotten with Sonar, I think it was in 1987.
Hmm.
And I remember my first kit that I got from them was a Sonar Light Scandinavian birch kit with black hardware. And they were the longer drums, instead of being a conventional 8 by 12, they were 10 by 12.
Hmm.
And for the band that I was in at the time, that was very good. But I grew up with traditional sizes. And I always liked an 8 by 12, 9, whatever, the regular sizes.
Right.
And I remember seeing one of their catalogs in German, and I saw a beautiful concert bass drum, and next to it said Nussbaum.
Hmm.
And Nussbaum is walnut tree. So it was a walnut finish. So I said to them, they had just released the highlight series, and they were still the larger, longer drums. I said, it would really make me happy if you could make some highlights in traditional depth with a walnut finish, since it's called Nussbaum.
Hmm.
And they said, yeah, das ist good. So that's what happened.
So how did they sell?
How
I
did
mean,
they fail?
yeah, I mean, were there good sales on that?
As far as I know, people that had them loved them.
Hmm. Well, they were a little bit of ahead of their time, I think, weren't they? Because the industry kind of came back, or the market came back to those shallower sizes in the long run.
Well, maybe they were. I wasn't really following everything. I just know that I never really liked long drums because I think a drum has to be able to react and respond
Hmm.
a certain way. And the longer the drum is, the longer it takes for the sound to react and respond. So I always liked the traditional and even shallower depth drums because of the way they would react and respond to different articulations a little better than a longer drum, at least to my ear.
Hmm. So comparing those to the Sonor lights you had, there was isolation gaskets and all that on the highlight stuff. How did you like the maple with the isolated hardware compared to the birch with the more onboard type stuff?
Well, when I had my Sonar lights, I did use rim system with them
Hmm.
that I put on, the aftermarket myself. I always felt because before I was with Sonar, I had a set of Gretsch that were in walnut finish. So I was used to a maple shell as such. That was still a sound in my head.
Hmm.
And so many of my heroes that I loved within the jazz idiom were playing Gretsch drums and maple shells. As you know, we know that Gretsch is a composite shell with the maple and the gumwood or
Right.
basswood, whatever they call it. But I just was happy to have because it was closer to that sound. And when I got the birch Sonar lights, I was playing in a band that had a lot of electric instruments. I
Hmm.
was playing with the Michael Brecker band, and Michael was, besides playing tenor saxophone, he was also playing an Iwi, which was an electronic wind instrument where he was triggering all kinds of sounds and samples. There was electric keyboard, electric guitar, electric bass, and the birch drums with the slightly longer everything helped just to work in that situation. But for more of the acoustic situations that I was present with, I liked having that maple
Gotcha.
shell.
So going back to the Gretsch, were you a Gretsch endorser, or you have to buy your Gretsch stuff?
I bought my Gretsch drums when I think I was 15 or 16 years old. I still have them.
So when it came time to look for an endorsement, did you knock on Gretsch's door, or how did you end up with Sonor?
Funny story. 1985, I was out and I was playing with Gary Burton.
Hmm.
And I did contact Gretsch. And I said, I've been a long-standing Gretsch player, and I'd love to get some sort of a deal with you. And I believe I was speaking to Dinah Gretsch at the time. And she said, well, send us your latest video. And at that time, I wasn't in any band that was doing videos. I wasn't, this was kind of like, the beginning of the whole internet world.
Hmm.
And so I said, well, I don't have any. So that just kind of fell by the wayside. And then 1987, I was playing with Mike Brecker. I remember specifically up at the Berkeley Performance Center in Boston. And we were playing on the same bill as Jack DeJohnette. And Jack had a beautiful set of the white sonar lights with black hardware.
Hmm.
And when we were doing a sound check, Jack said, hey, man, can you play my drums for a minute? I want to hear what they sound like in the house. And I played them and I said, wow, these drums sound fantastic. And he said, are you hooked up with anybody? And I said, no, I'm not. And he made a call to the distributor of Gretsch at the time, I mean, Sonar, excuse me, at the
Hmm.
time. And then they contacted me, and I was able to get a very good initial deal. And what they did was they gave me a great price. They didn't give them to me.
Hmm.
I got them at a very good price. And I respect them for that because they could tell that I was interested in the product. I just didn't want something for free.
Right.
And
So
so and that was the beginning of my connection with Sonor. And I thank Jack DeJohnette very much. He's what can you say about him? He's a wizard and he's a very nice man and very grateful for his hooking me up.
Well, this is the second time in the last two interviews that his name's come up. Tal Bergman mentioned him the other day and said, when he, when his face was beside Jack DeJohnette, he really felt like he was somebody or something to that effect anyway.
Well,
So,
Jack is one of the iconic figures in the music, and he's somebody who's been incredibly inspiring, very encouraging, and it's very satisfying to become friends with your mentors.
mhm,
And he's been one of them. And, he's a one in a row, to say for sure.
gotcha.
He's, just grateful that he's been around and still doing it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So when you signed on, was it Honer or Korg that had it, or is it Charles Alden? Which one was it?
It was Korg.
It was Korg.
And
Okay.
the gentleman that contacted me initially was a gentleman named Carl Dustman.
I just read his book.
Oh, he's got a book? Wow. My Life in Percussion. Fantastic. Wow.
Yeah, and Bob Sedlowski has mentioned it. Actually, Bob recommended the book.
Okay. Yeah, I remember Bob.
Hmm.
Bob, there was Buzz King.
Buzz King and I are very good friends. He's actually building me a batch of King Kong cases right now for the old signature snare drums with the parallel action strainers.
Yeah, they need a lot of room.
They really do. So anyway, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I actually know Buzz very well.
No, he's a good man.
Uh,
Absolutely. I got
Totally.
some of his cases as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, they're the best. So, when you in the interview I did with Todd Zuckerman, we discussed the fact that he was having problems as an artist with Honer as a distributor, and to the point he wound up having to go to another company. Did you ever have issues with Honer?
I never really did a lot of domestic work.
Mm,
Most of my work was overseas.
okay.
And so consequently, when I was over there, and if I, let's say I was on a tour, I could contact the main, headquarters in Germany and Aue, Bad Belberg, and they would, send out stuff for me and provide for me. And the few times when I did have some stuff here domestically, I was able to get some coverage through HSS. And
Mhm.
now that KHS is taking care of stuff here, they've been very good, and seems like there's a more of a an artist relation team in place there. But I never had any complaints, and I was never somebody to really bother them.
Yeah,
If I needed to do a gig and they couldn't provide me with something, you know, I've kind of become a believer that it's the painter more than the brush.
I got you.
So if I get the right sizes with the right kind of heads, I'll do my best. Of course, I always love having a sonar kit because that's the sound that I'm enjoying and that feels good to me. And I want to do right by them as they've done right by me.
Sure. Now I saw you playing in Boston for the 400th anniversary of Zildjian. Um, I was with Shane with the Drum Center of Portsmouth. I worked for him very briefly.
He's a
Uh,
good man.
he really is, and I'm a South Georgia boy, and
I would never have been able to tell.
yeah, I tried to leave my accent here and not take it with me, but it just followed me up, and it tells on me really quick. But
In the DNA, brother.
yeah, man. But the cost of living and the weather up there, I would have never. I got out of there before the weather declined really badly. I'd have never been able to stand their winters. But it was a great opportunity Shane gave me, and
Yeah,
I got to do some really cool stuff, and that was one of them. And
yeah,
you were playing a vintage kit, correct?
yeah. They're fantastic.
Is that your go-to right now?
I don't have a vintage kit right now.
Okay.
I mean, the last kit that I got, I I never had a set of the Rosewood Phonics. So when they started with the SQ2 series, where you could really configure everything the way you wanted, I said, I'd love to get something that's very close to the Rosewood Phonics.
Mm-hmm.
I believe they're beach.
Right.
So I got a set of SQ2s with the beach shell, not the real thick one, but more medium.
Mm-hmm.
And I got it in a rosewood finish with a gloss instead of the matte. And that's the last kit I got. I got it with an 18, a 22, a 12, and a 14, and a snare drum. And they're what I'm using in my house. They're set up all the time. And when I'm out doing gigs, a little local gigs, I'm using my highlight.
Still using the highlight.
Absolutely. I'm actually using the 12 and the 14, and I have a jungle bass drum which is in the same finish, the walnut finish,
Mm-hmm.
and I had it cut down to 12 by 16 instead of the regular 16 by 16 because like I said I like them shallower depth and it's got more pop and punch to it.
Right.
And it works great for at least some little gigs I got around. I'd like to get a vintage kit, but I don't know, you know, how often I'd be taking it out. And the last thing my wife wants me to have is another set of drums in the house.
Hey, I can dig that. So I looked at your drum rider, and so you specify 14 by 18 bass drum with no hole. And it
Absolutely.
said must have no hole. It wasn't like I don't like holes. It said must have no hole.
That's absolutely correct. I grew up where, I was always using drums that had no holes in them.
Hmm.
And that's the sound I like because I like the tone, I like the character and the shape of the note. And any muffling I need to do, I will do with I might use a felt strip on the resonant head, or a lot of times I have a whole collection of sleeves that I've cut off of old t-shirts. I
Hmm.
leave them in my cymbal bag. I'll have the drum with nothing in it, and I'll just drop maybe a few of those sleeves between the pedal and the head. That way I can control what I want because I may be playing some things. I primarily play in a jazz situation, so a lot of times I'm dealing with an upright bass,
Hmm.
and the acoustic instrument uh, sounds for me, let me go backwards. Having two heads on the drums allows it to sonically be more compatible with the sound of an upright bass than if I had a drum with a hole in it and a pillow in there. If you're
Gotcha.
using a bigger bass drum, maybe a 22, 24, I can understand that. Depending, you have to have the right tools for the job. And depending on what's happening with the music, I can drop another sleeve down there or not if I need to deaden the head a little more.
Yeah, that's
And we always have to realize that a lot of times I'm going to gigs. I don't know what the sound man's about. A lot of times they don't mic the drums. I have to know that I have a good sound coming from me acoustically
mhm.
and not be dependent on a sound man. If you're working in a band and you have the same sound man every night, that's another story. You know them, they know you.
Hmm.
Many times, a sound man, if he doesn't know what you sound like, they can really sabotage what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
If they don't know about how you're trying to get a good sound. I mean, the people that inspired me came from back in the day where they'd put one mic in front of the drum set. And it's like you had to give them a balanced sound. You were the one who had to control the mix,
Right.
not the sound guy.
Sure. So, um, uh, so you've had your highlights for a long time, obviously, and
Yeah.
you got the Rosewood SQ2s.
Mhm.
What other gear have you had along the way?
I have a set of designer maple shells thin that I have at a friend's recording studio now.
What color were they?
Walnut. Come
I,
on, man. What am I going to do? I like drums to look like an acoustic instrument.
hmm.
I always say to myself, I never saw Pablo Casals or Yasha Heifetz playing a silver sparkle Stradivarius.
Right.
And I also just like the natural quality of the wood and everything. I think it's beautiful.
I tend to agree with you. My last couple of things have been a little different. I've got an SQ1 set, and it's that they don't come available in a wood grain type finish. It's the automotive, like the old 50s, I think, automotive colors. And it's still a classy look. And then my vintage sets in the silver glitter.
Right?
I happened to get a really good deal on that. I would have preferred, one of the wood grains for the same reason you're saying,
Yeah.
So I get that.
I mean, I have played the vintage on numerous occasions. I played them before they came out. I played some prototypes.
Hmm.
I thought they were wonderful. And I like the grace and the style of that old teardrop shaped lug. I like the old script of the Sonar logo, and they have a beautiful warm sound. They had a set down at the 55 bar in New York City that recently closed, unfortunately. That was a wonderful venue. And I was playing them all the time and really enjoyed them. The snare drum's beautiful. I mean, they're wonderful drums. There's no question about it.
Yeah, I totally agree on that one.
Yeah.
So what about snare drum wise? Do you have a go-to or do you have a collection of snares depending on what you're doing or what?
Uh, my favorite Sonar snare drum was my Sonar Light 7 by 14 547X.
Do you still have it?
I have one. Yes, I do. It's it's that birch, and it's I have one with the walnut finish, of course. And
Sure.
what I like is it has extended snares, but a traditional throw off.
Hmm.
That whole parallel thing, that's a little too much mechanism for my taste.
Yeah.
I like to keep it simple. And that drum, what I love about it is it's fat. It's got the balance of opposite things working in harmony.
Hmm.
Fat and thick, but it's crisp and articulate and a wonderful instrument. And for me, I've generally on snare drums prefer a flange tube than a die cast tube because I just feel lets the drum have a little bit more openness. It seems to sparkle a little more.
Sure.
It all depends, then you may get you never know what's going to happen. You could have a
Right.
great drum and it's tuned terribly, and then you could have a lousy drum tuned great, and you never know.
Right. Did you go to NAM?
I haven't been to NAM in over 30 years.
Have you looked at any of the pictures of the 150th anniversary stuff they've got out?
I saw a few of these big drums they had, and they look beautiful, but that's not on my dance card.
No, I get it. I get it. I was just curious if you had any kind of opinion. They had the um, both of the both the Sonor Light and the Signature. They've got matching snare drums, and then they've got that big cast bronze, 14 by 8 again, and they've all got the dual glide system. Have you had a snare drum with the dual glide system?
That's the one with the parallel release.
Well, you got one side that releases.
Right, but it's got a mechanism inside the drum too, correct?
No, not on the dual glide system.
Oh, okay.
No,
I'm not familiar with that.
well, you ought to check that out because I think it's not a sophisticated system like the parallel action strainer was, but what you do have is you have an adjustable butt, and
Oh,
the way the lever action works on the throw off, over time I've got a bunch of Ron Wixow's designer series stuff. I bought all of his snare drums and some of his other stuff. And some of those throw offs that kind of resembled the old Ludwig throw offs, if somebody tries to over tighten the snare wires, those things will bind up and they will wind up getting real sloppy and not wanting to work good.
right.
So I'm having to fix a lot of that kind of stuff. Not Ron stuff, but stuff I've gotten elsewhere. I've been buying up a bunch of stuff.
Huh?
But the point I'm trying to get at is that the dual I said it a minute ago, and
Dual glide.
that one, yeah. Getting old. The dual glide system seems to fix all of that.
Nice.
Plus, if you're like me and you like to be able to, tweak your butt end in addition to because if you're trying to get them centered, it's kind of aggravating when you're having to loosen the butt and then you go too far. Yeah, I mean, you know as well as I do what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
this eliminates all that in a very solid mechanism that ought to last for decades without wearing out. So,
I'm gonna have to check it out. I
yeah,
mean, generally the Sonar hardware has been extremely reliable and durable. I'm
right.
still somebody who wants the lightest possible quality hardware.
Sure.
I like single braced. I want everything as light as possible. no, we're not getting any younger. I don't want to have to schlep anything any heavier than I need to.
Hmm.
So I wish that that would be something that they would try to get going a little bit more. That's happened with some of the other companies trying to address that.
Yeah, well, Yamaha makes the crosstown stuff, which is, are you familiar with that?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I was gigging with that. As much of a sonar nut as I am, when it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you're ready to go home, the last thing you want to do is have a 400-pound bag of hardware to wrestle out and try to throw up into the car or truck.
I actually I believe, and I believe, and a lot of people have agreed with me. The lighter cymbal stands allow your cymbals to sound better because you have less mass.
Hmm.
It allows things to vibrate in a certain way. I've been using DW hardware for a long time. They have this ultralight or whatever series
Right.
that I've been using, and I'm very happy with it. I'm hopeful that Sonar will, do this at some point.
Well, I've gotten a really good sense of things from talking to several people. When I talked to Todd Zuckerman, he said that Steve, he had asked Steve Smith about the company and all that because Karl Heinz Menzel's retired, and Todd said he didn't want to get on a sinking ship. But Steve Smith had all positive things to say about the company and apparently the direction things are going.
Yeah.
So with the new mindset, you
I'm
know,
hopeful, man. This
yeah.
is and I have a nice relationship with the American distributor,
Hmm.
KHS. When I first met Karl Heinz in 1980, so I knew him because initially Sonar used to provide the backline for the Berlin Jazz Festival,
Hmm.
which was a very large festival. And so I knew Karl Heinz for years before I finally got connected with Sonar, and he's a good man, and I believe now they do have a good team. It's interesting because most of the people that I knew in the industry when I first got in there, they're either retired or they've moved to that big bandstand in the sky.
Right.
It's just I like to know who the people are, and hopefully they know who I am, and we try to have a nice relationship.
Right. I totally get that. And I think I say new, but the guys at KHS, I've talked to Jeff Mulvihill a couple of times.
Good man. It's a good team they have there. Jeff is there, Henry Go, uh, Jerry Goldenson, who's there. These are good people down there.
Right.
And they know about the musicians, and
Hmm.
they know about the reality of things out there. And it's a we're in a definitely new time.
Right.
I refer my son, who's 32, he refers to my wife and I as digital immigrants. He's a digital native.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a very astute way of putting it because we grew up in a different time.
Yeah.
There was no internet, there was no mobile phones, there was none of this social media. The whole climate of things now had really changed a lot.
Hmm.
And some things I think are great and some things are not for my own take on stuff.
Right.
But it is something that's happening and we can't deny it and we have to accept it.
Sure.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like with the new people in Germany and all that with Sonar, I think they're going to breathe some new life and maybe move some things in the direction, you and I aren't the only ones that want lightweight hardware from Sonar.
Right.
And so, while at the same time I think we may have the potential for some new things. I think that they respect the tradition and history, and that's the vibe I'm getting. So, I've been a Sonar nut for 40 years now,
Yeah.
and so it's just nice to know that. I'm not going to have to go back and dig up old gear from somewhere to be my favorite stuff. I'm still enjoying what they're coming out with.
Yeah, I mean, I still have a bunch of old Sonar hardware, the old single braced hi hat
Hmm.
with that footboard with like the rubber on it.
Right?
I have one of those. I have an old snare stand. It's it's beautifully crafted. I mean, it's German engineering. It's well made, good quality. A lot of the new stuff I see, if a piece of hardware falls down and hits something, a casting will crack. This stuff this stuff will hold up. It's, precision, German designed and engineered and produced
Hmm.
with quality as the bottom line. Make something of quality.
Hmm.
And that's something I think that is unfortunately happening more and more, where a lot of companies, and not Sonar so much, have been thinking about how they're going to maximize the bottom line, and then the quality goes down. And I'm not one of those people. I'd rather spend a little more to get something that's going to last. And I mean, I'm using this Sonar snare drum stand. It's probably at least from the early 70s.
Hmm.
It works like it's brand new. I mean, come on. That's what you want.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm with you there. So if you were going to order a new set, what do you think you'd come up with on the configurator, or would you get the vintage or what?
I'd probably do a vintage kit.
It's a good sounding set of drums.
Oh man, I like them. I mean, I'm an analog man.
Hmm.
And it's like they actually Sonar used a line that I said one time. I said, it's an analog sound in the digital world. That was my line.
Really?
Yeah. And it was yeah, that's what I would definitely go for. I've been very pleased when I get to play them, and yeah.
So
I
how
mean,
did it work?
many times, man, I'm often doing gigs. There's drums at the venues.
Hmm.
So I'm not playing my own gear that often.
Yeah.
When I'm traveling, I'm just basically bringing cymbals, sticks, and some heads thrown in I got a Gator 20-inch bass drum case that was cut down to be about 7 or 8 inches wide.
Hmm.
And I put my lightest weight Zildjian cymbal bag in there and stick bag open and a bunch of heads, and that's it. And it's under 20 kilos. And it rolls, I check it, and that's it. And then I just, that way I got heads if I need them. I'll always have an 18, because if I get an 18 with a hole, I'm not happy.
Hmm. So when you're out playing and you're using other gear, how frequently do you get Sonar gear?
Well, it depends where you are,
Hmm.
and it depends, what they have.
I did an interview with Ron Wixo in 2016 or 2017, and he's been a Sonar guy for endorser since 1990. But when he was doing backline with Credence Clearwater Revisited, he was virtually never getting Sonar because that's just not what he got a lot of DW and that kind of thing. But
Well, I said before, I most of my work has been overseas.
right.
So when I'm in Germany, Sonar is very present,
Hmm.
and they're very present within those countries around there.
Yeah.
And I've been, well taken care of when I've been in the Netherlands, Austria, Switzerland, Germany, the Czech Republic, Croatia, wherever I'm going in that world. There's usually, more often than not, it's Sonar, more present over there than over here.
Yeah. You ever go to Japan?
many times, and they have very good coverage over there.
That's what I was about to say. That was something that he had mentioned way back then, was that there was a lot more of that than, I mean, you got some good Japanese companies over there. You would think that would be what you were running into.
Everybody wants the other thing that's more exotic. It's like you here in the States, you have an imported car, you know? In
Hmm.
Japan, oh, you have Sonar and Komaki Music over there. They were fantastic with taking care of stuff for me there.
Now you say were. Have you just not been back lately? Are they gone or what?
I hope they're still there. I just haven't been to Japan in about 10 years.
I got you.
I used to go a lot, and then things change up, stuff like that.
So as you do these different things and play these different Sonar sets, have you played on anything that you really hadn't played on before and just think, wow, I'd like to have this, or wow, this just doesn't appeal to me, or anything either way?
I'm not a fan of those big square drums.
Right.
I mean, I know it's a big thing and it was a very high-end, beautiful thing when they had those signatures
Hmm.
that were square drums and stuff like that. That's great for some things, but it's not for what I personally like. And, look at all the different cats you're talking to who are involved with Sonar. We all spin the web a little different.
Sure. Yeah.
And we all like the quality of the product.
Hmm.
And I'm just somebody that I basically like what I grew up with. That was traditional sizes. That's the sound in me. All my heroes was traditional sizes. So that's what I'd get to I remember getting to a gig somewhere and they had a signature kit with like a 24-inch bass drum. The toms were like 14, 15. It was like I had to sit on a high chair. And it was like, man, and I was playing with an acoustic trio. It was like, wait a minute. I
You
I have the wrong tools for this job.
you can't finesse those big old toms.
I'm not good enough to do that.
But I
Maybe some
just,
people.
I think that it requires a certain amount of force just to get them to open up and make a full tone. So, that's just not a finessable drum, I don't think.
I'm trying to learn as time goes on how to play softer
Uh-huh.
with intensity.
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing to do.
Hmm.
It's easy to hit loud and stuff like that, but to be able to maintain that intensity and that commitment at a quiet volume, it's not easy. But when somebody knows how to do it, it has impact. Because then you got more headroom.
Right.
I mean, I grew up in the age of amplifiers.
Hmm.
You know, if you couldn't hear something, you just say to somebody, turn it up instead of, why can't we learn how to play soft?
Hmm. So in your years of being a Sonor endorser, did you ever consider trying to go back to Gretsch or go to a different company, or is it pretty well been solid for you all the way?
I feel a commitment with them.
Hmm.
I know that when they were shifting, going through different distributors and things like that, some people were like saying, are you going to make a move? What's going to happen? And I said, well, let me put it like this. They stood by me. I'm going to stand by them.
Yeah.
I feel a sense of commitment.
Hmm.
They've been cool with me. I'm not somebody that bothers them all the time. Like I need this, I need that. I try to keep kumbaya, try to keep the maintain the path of least resistance as
Hmm.
time goes on. Uh, I'm and as also like I said, I gotta, it's up to me more than anything else.
Hmm.
I mean, you can get a lousy drummer on a great set of drums and he'll sound terrible. You can get a great drummer on a lousy set of drums and he's going to deliver.
Right.
So, like I said, it's the painter, not the brush. I mean, I remember seeing Elvin Jones sit in on Omar Hakim's drum set, which couldn't have been more different than what he was
Mm-hmm.
used to playing. And within 4 bars, you knew that was Elvin Jones.
Wow.
And so we have to try to do that. And it's great to have an instrument that allows you the ability to express yourself
Mm-hmm.
and satisfy the needs of what the music requires. I
Right.
mean, I play music that's pretty much more in the acoustic world, but sometimes it's more electric. And I grew up with rock, but I also love jazz. So I'm a mix of everything that's affected me.
Mm-hmm.
I want an instrument that's going to deliver. I don't tune real high like a lot of jazz guys do. I kind of tone more down. I like the drums to have some bottom in there.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I want the balance of opposite things. I want crisp, but I want bottom. I want fat, but I want articulate. I want, it's like I want everything there. I want Tinker Bell and Count Dracula, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Yeah. I like that analogy.
I want to have the darkness because the drums, it's supposed to be something deep and rich coming from the earth, but I also want that sparkle. I want to be able to cover all the aspects of, you know, the rainbow, man. I'm trying to paint pictures with sound.
Mm-hmm. That
That's what
makes sense.
I do.
Yeah. So what have we not discussed that we should bring up?
Oh, well. Ah, well, I'm just hoping for peace in the world.
Yeah.
But I've been very happy to be with Sonar. I feel, like I said, I feel a commitment to them as they've been committed to me. And I think when you have an arrangement with a company, it should be working hand in hand. You help them with things, they help you with things. And I've been able to have this with Sonar. I've been fortunate. I've had it with Zildjian. I've been with Zildjian since 1982, and I've had a nice relationship with them. It's also things shift, the people that I knew and were associated with initially are no longer there. So we have to try to continue, and I have to try to help maintain what I've been able to receive and pay forward.
That's a common That's a common thing I'm hearing as I'm doing these interviews. Tal said some of the same things the other day about, the longevity and the fact that, he never wanted to leave. He just always had a very strong relationship, and he's talking about how important relationships are.
That's
Plus
right.
the drums are just rock solid, and if you're not inspired by your sound, there's something missing.
Right. It has to feel good to you.
Hmm.
And it has to feel good for you playing it, and it also has to project and feel good out in the house.
Right.
It has to be a mutual thing. I mean, I've heard some guys play, like for instance, I've heard somebody where I hear a cymbal from the audience, and I think, wow, that really sounds nice. But then when I get on top of it and I play it, it's not so satisfying.
Hmm.
Like, well, it has to feel good for me if I want it to feel good for that. So you have to find that balance.
Yeah.
And I there's that old expression, it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been endorsing the DW pedals and hardware for a long time because I like I said, I like that lighter hardware.
Hmm.
So I got with DW a long time ago with that. I mean, I had chain pedals when they were first being made by Frank Ippolito's Professional Percussion Center in New York. He was the first person to convert the Gretsch or the old Camco pedals to the sprocket and the chain.
Hmm.
That's where that started because Billy Cobham and Elvin Jones were breaking those straps all the time. And then that later became something that became pretty standard in the industry, having a pedal with a chain. instead of a strap.
Hmm. We know Todd, even though he switched back to Sonor, he's still using pearl pedals, and it's not uncommon for Sonor guys to play different pedals. So maybe the new group over there in Germany, maybe we'll get to look forward to some new things in that area. I think that's an area that could use some attention.
Well, I like that Jojo Meyer pedal very much.
Do you? Now I had a few of those.
I like the feel of it. The initial version of it that folded up, you really had to get it set up the right way.
Yeah.
And then they also made a stationary version, and they feel very good to me. But I'm still like, I like that DW. I still use one with the strap on it. I mean, I'm going back to my roots, you know? It's
Hmm.
like I said, what you grow up with is kind of deep in your DNA,
Yeah.
and it's what you're used to. So I grew up playing pedals with straps, and then I had the one with a chain, but then I went back to the strap, and I like it. So I'm using a DW with a strap on it. And so I'm just I guess I'm an anachronism. I don't know.
Well, people do what works, and
What feels good to you?
that's the important thing. Brand loyalty is great, but at the same time, there comes times you have to go a different route for what works.
I mean, how many people have you seen, endorsing a certain drum company, but they got a different snare drum?
A lot.
A lot, or a different pedal or something like that. This is all what happens along the way.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean you have any less respect or affinity or affection for something. Just you enjoy what you enjoy. I can relate completely. If I were gigging right now, it would be with Yamaha Crosstown Hardware. As much as I want to support the Sonor brand, I
Amen.
just I did move my drum set a while back. I went and played at a different church for about a month, and I'm like, I'm moving this 600 series hardware, and yeah, yeah. So
You know,
reminded myself why I like the Crosstown so much.
well, that's a very smart idea. They came up with something very smart, and I think it's important for everybody. If you're a company and you want to maintain on the cutting edge of things, you need to check out and see what everybody else is doing as well.
Hmm.
And you know what they say, to steal from one person is plagiarism, but to steal from many is
Research. Yes, sir.
absolutely.
Yeah, I like that. Well, what else? I
Well,
think
man, I'm uh I'm looking forward to a, Super Bowl.
is it that time of year? I don't even follow that too much, but
I've gotten into it more recently than when I was younger. But, when it comes down to the witching hour and the heat is on, when it's the best of the best, it's
hmm.
exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never really cared about it, but as I'm getting older, it's nice. My wife likes it too, and so we'll sit down and we'll have some good grub and dig on what's happening. I mean, because they got the Philadelphia Eagles, and I'm living in PA,
Hmm.
but I think they're going to have a tough time with Kansas City because that's a hell. They're both two very fine teams, and
Yeah.
what's happening. But this year, is Sonar's 150th anniversary.
Right.
And I know they're planning something down in Nashville during the Music City event. And then I know they're doing something in Germany at some point as well. So,
Well, you know what? I'm close enough to actually I've been to KHS in Nashville. I went and picked up I bought some stuff on Reverb and went and picked it up. So that's not that far of a throw for me. I may go to that
well,
Music City thing. I don't know if my car will make it to Germany, so I probably won't make that one.
I don't know about the car, but maybe you could try swimming.
That's a good idea because I've been wanting to do weight loss, and I figure if I just do it all at one time, then just get easier from there, right?
Yeah. Have you been over to the factory ever?
I have not. That was when I started working for Shane. I told Shane that one stipulation of going to work for him was that you know, I wanted to go to the Germany, to Germany. And I think he would have done that. If I'd have stayed, I think he would have done that. So,
Well, it's incredible to see the process of how they make stuff there.
yeah.
It's like in the middle of the woods. It's like over the river and through the woods. There you see the Sonar factory, and they have all these cows around and everything. I used to kid them because they have a bunch of buildings that almost look like massive barns. I used to say, "Is that the security cow system out there?"
Cute.
Yeah, and I'm still good friends with Oliver Link,
Yeah.
who's
Nah.
part of the dynasty,
Hmm.
and yeah, and Karl Heinz, we still keep in contact. So it was nice to get a nice relationship with these people.